We are coming to you live right now. We're live. Holy shit. The vice presidential debate has just wrapped up. It was right here in New York City, and just outside the venue, each candidate's supporters were embodying our forefathers' passion for elevated political discourse.
We're not going back! We're not going back! Suck my
We're not going back. Suck my dick. The campaign in a nutshell. Now, before we get into the actual debate, it's important to remember how high the stakes were tonight. They weren't that high. Because as I previously mentioned, it was a vice presidential debate. One of these men will lose and we'll never hear from him again, and the other one will become VP and we'll never hear from him again. So tonight probably won't matter much to the voters, but to the news media, it was a historic opportunity to get people to watch TV.
Choose your vice as anticipation builds for one of the most crucial VP debates in modern history.
One of the biggest moments of the campaign.
The most important vice presidential debate in history.
What could be the most important vice presidential debate in modern American political history.
If you were using your TV outlet for your grandma's life support, it's time to pull the plug on that bitch. That's how big this debate. I mean, are you for real? The most crucial VP debate in history? The only other VP debate anyone remembers is the time that fly got stuck on Mike Pence's head. The bar is low. Now, for those of you just tuning in to the presidential race, which, by the way, congratulations, that must be nice. Just tuning in? Let me break down who these two men are. There's Tim Walz, Minnesota governor and the neighbor from Home Improvement, and J.D. Vance, Ohio senator and guy with the social skills of ChatGPT. On paper, they have a lot in common. They're both Midwestern dads. They both have military backgrounds. They both hate Donald Trump. They both watch Shawshank every time it's on TV, even though they have it on DVD. But as much as these guys have in common, they've been going pretty hard at each other over this campaign. Walz has repeatedly called Vance weird. He made a joke about him banging a couch. And worst of all, he implied that he's a fancy boy.
Like all regular people I grew up with in the heartland, J.D. studied at Yale.
He's a Yale law guy. I'm public school teacher.
We don't need a Yale-educated philosophy major. I had 24 kids in my high school class, and none of them went to Yale.
Oh, shit. Check out this bitch and his quality education. I get what Tim Walz is doing, but ease up a little. I mean, the only person who talks more about going to Yale than Tim Walz is everyone who went to Yale. But Vance's attacks on Walz have been just as personal. He's accused Walz of stolen valor. He's claimed he's a compulsive liar. And he even suggested that Walz doesn't actually love his wife.
Talk about weird with Tim Walz. I don't know if you guys saw the rally yesterday, but afterwards, his wife comes up to him, and Tim Walz does what any normal Midwestern guy would do, seeing his beautiful wife on stage after his speech. He gives her a firm handshake. Right? That's pretty weird.
Yeah, come on, Tim. Finger blast your wife, dude. It's a rally, not a funeral. A real man greets his wife doggy style. What are you doing? Also, to be fair to Tim Walz, in Minnesota, a firm handshake is considered third base. But even though it's been personal between these two, both Vance and Walz are professionals. And that means engaging in the traditional pre-debate game of lowering expectations. It's a careful strategy where you hype up your opponent's debating skills while downplaying yours, so that even a mediocre performance seems like a win. Let's see how Tim Walz handled his attempt to lower expectations.
Sources now tell CNN that Tim Walz is fighting off a case of the nerves ahead of his debate with Senator J.D. Vance. He is said to be nervous that he might let Kamala Harris down.
And we know he did warn Harris during the vetting process that he's a bad debater.
Okay, that might be lowering expectations too much. Tim, you want to be more like, my opponent is a slick talker, not me talk bad, disappoint pretty lady. You want, I'm new to all this, not, I'm so stupid a dog used peanut butter to trick me into licking his balls. Meanwhile, on the Republican side, Donald Trump took a swing at lowering expectations for J.D. Vance. Now remember, Mr. Trump, the goal is to subtly suggest that J.D. Vance might have a hard time at the debate because he's going up against a skilled debater. Show us.
He's going up against a moron, a total moron.
Crushed it. Crushed it. But it wasn't just the candidates preparing for the debate. The debate moderators were also trying to find ways to keep them honest. Now, at the last debate between Kamala and Trump, ABC got heat for live fact-checking the whole dogs and cats thing. So tonight, CBS took a different approach.
CBS says there will be no live fact-checking by the moderators, but the broadcast will feature a QR code on the screen, which will link to a real-time fact-check being done by CBS journalists.
Yes, a QR code. Perfect journalism. When a candidate tells a lie, why correct it for the 50 million people watching live? Just have a link for the 12 nerds who bother scanning it. Am I supposed to be impressed that they have a QR code? Every asshole has a QR code. We even have one right here. Yeah, it's just a menu for a Mexican restaurant I went to during the pandemic, but still, you can scan this if you want. There it is, right there. After all that preparation, the debate finally began at 9 o'clock. And right off the bat, there was a big difference between these guys and Trump's debate with Kamala, or Trump's debate with anyone. These guys seem to actually get along.
You're going to hear a lot from Tim Walz this evening, and you just heard it in the answer. A lot of what Kamala Harris proposes to do, and some of it, I'll be honest with you, it even sounds pretty good.
So the rhetoric is good. Much of what the senator said right there, I'm in agreement with him on this.
Governor Walz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this.
I believe Senator Vance wants to solve this.
I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem.
I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said.
I actually agree with Tim Walz.
Wow. Maybe you two should run together. Yeah. Maybe a date? It seems like you have a lot in common. Hello, CBS, it's Tim. We're going to share an Uber home. But seriously, to see two candidates being civil with each other, even though they disagree, it was surprising and personally boring as shit. I mean, talk about something interesting like who's going to eat the cats. Nobody's going to turn any of these sound bites into a TikTok. That's not to say the whole thing was cordial. There was one moment where things got so heated the moderators had to take matters into their own hands.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by
thank
our
you,
own
Senator, for
leadership.
describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
The
we want to have.
CBP app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut.
Okay, now, that's within the rules, but it did seem like they kind of enjoyed it. No, no one can hear you because we cut the mics. Speaking as a voter who's been watching this campaign for like the last 200 years, this might have been my favorite moment. If Nora and Margaret could offer everybody in America a button that mutes politicians, we would elect that ticket. Now, for a lot of America, this debate was the first introduction to the VP candidates, and we learned a lot about their positions. Like, Walz had this droopy dog position, and J.D. Vance had this position. But they both surprised me a bit. For example, when talking about immigration, Walz quoted a book I didn't think Democrats had ever read. I guess it's called the Bible?
I don't talk about my faith a lot, but Matthew 25:40 talks about, to the least amongst us you do unto me.
Wow, Tim Walz has really stolen every Republican shtick. You know, he's folksy, he's into cars, hunts, quotes the Bible. You know, what's next? He's going to find out he's the webmaster of nudeafrica.com. And we learned a surprising thing about Vance as well. He does support diversity in certain circumstances.
Let the individual states make their abortion policy, and I think that's what makes the most sense in a very big, a very diverse and divided country. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience. Donald Trump has been very clear that on the abortion policy specifically, that we have a big country and it's diverse.
Yeah. Okay, you see, America, Republicans do support diversity. Some states believe women should have rights, and some don't. It's the beautiful tapestry of America. Now, if you remember, Tim did tell Kamala he was a bad debater. And there was one moment in this debate when I said, yeah, he is. Fact check, true.
You said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Damn. You know you're blowing the Tiananmen Square question when you look more nervous than the dude staring down the tank. If you didn't like that joke, here's a QR code you can scan to get a refund for this portion of the show. Thank you. You don't know how much time we spent on those QR codes. So now Vance, on the other hand, to his credit, did a great job in the debate. He was smooth, he was confident, he was prepared. The only problem he may have had was his memory.
Donald Trump's economic policies delivered the highest take-home pay in a generation in this country, 1.5% inflation, and to boot, peace and security all over the world.
Peace around the world. There wasn't even peace in this country. The only time there was peace was when we were all locked in our house cleaning our vegetables with Clorox wipes. Wipes I stole from my neighbor and sold them on eBay, which did increase my take-home pay, so thank you, Donald Trump. Now, so what did we learn about tonight? Well, first, let's be honest. 99% of voters will not care about the VP debate. That's a fact. If you want to check it, you can scan this QR code. We had to do one more, which will open up your internet browser, and you can Google it yourself. I'm busy. I'm hosting a live TV show, okay? But aside from that, the thing I took away from this debate was that both of these men, they made the Midwest proud. All right, this debate was an oasis of Midwestern nice. And just like Midwestern nice, it was a mask covering deep-seated hatred and resentment. Don't let 90 minutes of them in a room together fool you. These men represent two movements that are at each other's throats, and their visions for America are radically different. So tonight might have been all, I agree, and my friend has a point, but tomorrow morning, we're all going to be back to this.
We're not